Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are unplugging from the Matrix, and I'm not really being metaphorical. We're looking at a text that is designed to be a hard red pill reset for the modern man. We are talking about Conrad Reicher's massive new ebook, Heretic Men. Those two stop the devil by delaying leftist ideologies. Now, before we even start to crack this open, and trust me, it is a dense, heavy read. I need you to do something right now.
Yep.
Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Seriously. If you want to keep getting these kinds of unfiltered insights, you need to be locked in.
That's right. And unfiltered is probably the understatement of the year for this one. This isn't just a book. Reicher has written what is effectively a declaration of war against the modern institutional landscape.
It is intense.
He is arguing pretty explicitly that the world you think you live in has been engineered to dismantle masculinity piece by piece.
And it's tailored specifically for guys who might be looking at the world, at the courts, at marriage, at the military, and feeling like the deck is stacked. Reicher calls it a gynocracy, which is a word we're going to be hearing a lot today. But look, we're just the guides here. If you want the full artillery, the full breakdown of facts and strategies, you need to go to Amazon Kindle or Google Playbooks and buy this ebook immediately. We can't cover everything.
Not in 15 minutes? No.
Also, make sure you follow him at Conrad Reicher on Substack, because he is constantly updating this whole thesis.
Absolutely. The book is voluminous.
So let's get into the meat of it. Reicher doesn't waste any time with pleasantries. He starts with the cornerstone of society.
Right.
Marriage. But he doesn't call it marriage. He calls it the marriage plantation.
Right. And this is where he lays out the economic argument for why modern marriage is, in his view, a bad deal for men. He's not talking about feelings here. He's talking about cold, hard resource extraction. He cites a Duke University study that tracked, I think, about 4,000 men. The data showed that married men work, on average, 400 more hours per year than single men.
400 hours? That's 10 extra weeks of full-time work.
It is. But here's the kicker. Despite working all that extra time, they save 60% less money.
Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second. Isn't that just life? You know, you have a family, kids, a mortgage. Things cost money. Why does Reicher frame that as servitude rather than just, being provider?
And that's the crucial distinction Reicher makes. He argues that in the past that labor bought a certain authority and respect within the household. Today, he argues, the paycheck is communal property, but the man's status is conditional. He calls it a transfer of wealth, where the man is a utility, not a partner. And he points to what happens when the contract breaks.
The divorce courts.
Exactly. The text highlights that 97% of alimony payers are men. Reicher refers to this as the sperm tax. He views it as legalized theft, where the state forcibly transfers resources from the earner to the non-earner long after the relationship is over.
He illustrates this with some stories that are just, man, they are visceral. There's the story of Mike. Reicher really paints the scene. You've got a guy pulling wire in the heat, knee shot, back aching, clocking those 80-hour weeks.
Yeah.
And he comes home to what? Not a partnership, but a bill. He's funding his wife's minimalist pottery studio.
Right, the $200 ashtrays.
Exactly. She's throwing clay, making these artisanal $200 ashtrays that literally nobody is buying except technically him. And the ending is just brutal. She serves him divorce papers in a custom bowl she made, kicks him out, and because he was the high earner,
he's on the hook.
He's now paying alimony that lets her keep the house and the pottery kiln.
It sounds absurd, but he uses it to show how the laws are structured. There's another case he mentions, a mechanic in Florida. Blue-collar guy. He's paying $3,400 a month in alimony.
Wow.
Meanwhile, his ex-wife is using that cash, his labor, to fund her, eat, pray, love journey in Bali with some yoga instructor.
See, that's the part that gets people. It's not just the money, it's the principle that you are financing your own replacement.
Reicher's whole argument is that the state incentivizes this. If a woman can leave the marriage, take the kids, keep the house, and guarantee a portion of the man's future income, well, the system has effectively removed the financial risk of divorce for her.
But for the man, it's a financial death sentence, as he puts it.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the enforcers of this contract. The legal system. If marriage is the plantation, the family courts are the overseers.
Reicher calls the justice system a gynocracy. His central thesis here is that the courts have been captured by an ideology that presumes men are either guilty, dangerous, or just unnecessary.
He throws out a stat on custody that really stopped me in my tracks.
The Census Bureau data.
Yep.
In contested custody cases, mothers are awarded primary custody roughly 91% of the time.
91%. That implies that in the eyes of the court, men are the better parent less than 1 out of 10 times. I mean, that doesn't seem statistically possible unless the system is rigged.
And Riker argues it is rigged specifically by something called the Duluth model.
Okay, pause on that. Duluth model. It sounds like a car or a winter coat. What actually is it?
It's a domestic violence intervention protocol. Police departments across the U.S. use it. Essentially, it trains officers to view domestic disputes through the lens of, patriarchal power and control.
Okay.
Practically, what Riker points out is that it instructs police to arrest the primary aggressor, which the model predisposes them to believe is the male.
So let me get this straight. If I'm a guy and I'm getting attacked frying pan, whatever, and I call 911,
The book argues that under that framework, you are still likely to be the one taken away in cuffs because you are viewed as the one with the power in the dynamic.
it's a double bind.
Exactly. You can't defend yourself, but you also can't rely on the police to defend you.
That is terrifying. And speaking of being defenseless, the section on false allegations is a hard read. He talks about the destruction of due process and the rise of believe all women.
He uses the Brian Banks case as a prime example. Here you have an NFL prospect, a young man with the world at his feet, accused of rape by a classmate.
No DNA evidence.
None. But he was terrified into a plea deal. He spent 5 years in prison. 5 years. Later, the accuser was caught on tape admitting she made the whole thing up.
But the damage is done. You can't get those years back. You can't get the NFL career back.
Precisely. And Riker points to the Duke lacrosse case and Mattress Girl at Columbia to show this isn't isolated. He cites a Department of Justice statistic saying about 8% of sexual assault claims are provably false.
And note the word provably.
Exactly. Riker argues that the guilty until proven innocent mindset in these cases is a tool of social control.
But the most shocking legal twist has to be paternity fraud. I knew this existed, but the case he cites.
The Ohio case, yeah, that is difficult to stomach. A man pays child support for years. He gets a DNA test that proves, scientifically 100%, that the child is not his.
So he goes to court.
He goes to court to stop the payments. The court rules that because he had acted as the father for a certain period, the best interests of the child, which means financial stability override biological truth.
So he still had to pay?
He was forced to pay over $15,000 in back support for a child that wasn't his.
That is the ultimate wallet argument. Doesn't matter who you are, it matters what you can pay. Okay, so we've got courts and marriage. But Riker argues this programming starts way, way earlier. He calls schools estrogen factories.
This is the War on Boys chapter. The argument is that the modern classroom is designed for the way girls learn, sitting still, verbal communication, compliance, and that normal boy behavior is now treated as a pathology.
And he points to the ADHD diagnosis rates.
Yep. Boys are diagnosed at triple the rate of girls. Riker calls this criminalizing testosterone.
Right, because a 6-year-old boy wants to run around and wrestle, not sit in the circle and share his feelings. And instead of letting him run, we drug him.
Or suspend him. Riker tells the story of a student in Florida suspended for drawing a stick figure warrior with a sword. They labeled it violent imagery. Meanwhile, Riker notes, girls are praised for their behavior.
The message is, your natural instincts are wrong. Be more like your sister.
And then they turn on the TV, and what do they see? Riker calls it the Simp Olympics.
The masculinity assassination in media.
Right. Think about almost every sitcom dad in the last 20 years.
Oh, totally. They're always the bumbling idiot. The wife is the smart, competent one holding it all together, and the dad is just a child with a credit card.
Modern Family, The Simpsons, even King Triton and The New Little Mermaid. Riker argues this is a deliberate psyop to lower the status of fathers, but he contrasts this fiction with a very gritty reality. He calls it the glass cellar.
We always hear about the glass ceiling. What's the glass cellar?
It's the dangerous, dirty underground of the economy. Riker cites OSHA data showing that 93% of workplace deaths are men.
93%.
These are the guys on oil rigs and coal mines hanging off high-voltage power lines during storms.
That's a powerful paradox. Society goes on Twitter and talks about toxic masculinity, but then relies on that exact same risk-taking behavior to keep the lights on.
Exactly. Men are disposable. Women and children first,
Yeah.
right? Riker argues that men are the buffer between civilization and chaos, but they get zero credit for it.
And you'd think, okay, well, at least traditional institutions, the church, the military, they must still respect men. But Riker says, nope. Betrayal there, too.
He argues the church has undergone a feminization of faith. He talks about worship music shifting from, onward Christian soldiers, themes of battle and strength, to what he calls Jesus is my boyfriend songs.
Soft, emotional.
Yeah, relationship focus.
Yeah.
He argues this drives men out of the pews because there is no role for them other than to sit quietly and be nice.
And the military. That's supposed to be the ultimate male space.
Not anymore, according to the book. He details the push for woke policies, the lowering of physical standards to meet gender quotas, and things like gender-neutral body armor, which apparently fits nobody.
Right.
But the biggest point of hypocrisy he lands on is the draft, the selective service.
Like still male only?
Yes. He cites the Supreme Court case Roskircher v. Goldberg. The draft is still male only, and Riker's point is scathing here. Feminists demand 50% of CEO jobs in combat roles, but there is absolute silence when it comes to registering for the draft.
They want the authority, but not the liability.
It's buffet-style equality. Pick the good stuff, leave the bad stuff on the tray.
Okay, so Riker has painted a pretty bleak picture. But he doesn't just leave it at society hates you. He tries to explain why using science. He pivots to evolutionary psychology.
This is the red pill core of the book. He leans on work from scientists like David Buss to explain hypergamy.
Let's break that down. Hyper what?
Hypergamy. It's the biological drive for women to seek mates who are of equal or higher status. Women date up across hierarchies, socially, financially, physically.
And in the modern world, we actually have data for this, the Tinder stats.
Right. Riker analyzes dating app data showing that women swipe right on a tiny percentage of men, somewhere between 4.5% and 14%.
So if you're an average guy, decent job, decent look at, you are essentially invisible.
You're a ghost. It's a winner-take-all economy. The top tier of men get all the attention, and the bottom 80% are fighting for scraps.
And Riker argues this proves that equality is a lie, because biology is inherently hierarchical.
Exactly. Men and women are different. He notes testosterone correlates with spatial reasoning and risk-taking traits that build civilizations. But then he brings up the gynocratic tax.
This is the economic kicker.
It is. He cites IRS data suggesting that men pay the vast majority of net taxes, somewhere between 71 and 82%. Those taxes fund the welfare state.
Low.
So Riker argues that men are working, paying taxes, and those taxes are used by the government to replace the father. The state becomes the husband, funded by the men it replaced.
You are paying for your own obsolescence.
Okay.
That is heavy. But we promised a solution. The book is called Heretic Men. So what does a heretic do? How do you stop this?
You escape the plantation. The final section is very tactical. He talks a lot about MGTOW.
You're going their own way.
Yes. But Riker frames it not just as giving up on women, but as a strategic withdrawal of resources. If the laws are rigged against you in marriage, the only winning move is not to play.
He talks about financial freedom as a shield.
Precisely. He suggests using crypto, keeping assets offshore, or embracing a minimalist lifestyle, he mentions van life, to keep your overhead low. If you don't have a massive house and a visible paycheck, you're harder to target.
But he also talks about brotherhood. And this was actually a surprisingly positive part of the book, the story of Jamal and Malik in Detroit.
Oh, I loved that anecdote. It's about two guys who realized the system wasn't coming to save them. They created a Google Doc pact. They tracked their savings, their workouts, their goals.
Just pure accountability.
Exactly. No government handouts, just holding each other accountable. It's about creating these male-only spaces, garages, gyms, lodges, places, free from sensitivity training where they can just be men.
He calls it an underground brotherhood.
And he elevates it to a spiritual level. He calls these men holy rebels, drawing parallels to historical figures like St. Thomas More, men who refused to bend the knee to a corrupt system, even when it cost them everything.
So let's wrap this up. What is the big takeaway here?
The core message of Heretic Men is that the system is not broken. It is working exactly as designed. It's designed to extract resources from men while demonizing masculinity. Riker's conclusion is that you have to take the red pill. You have to see the game for what it is.
And once you see it,
You have a choice. Do you keep feeding the machine, or do you go on strike?
and that is the provocative thought we're going to leave you with. If society continues to pathologize the builders, the protectors, the rough men, what happens when they decide to stop? What happens when the builders go on strike?
It's a question everyone should be asking.
Absolutely. Look, we barely scratched the surface of the data and the history in this book. This was just a primer. You need to read the full text. Go to Amazon Kindle or Google Play Books right now and buy Heretic Men. Those two stop the devil by delaying leftist ideologies by Conrad Riker. Support the work, get the facts.
And follow him directly. Go to Substack and find @Conrad Riker.
That's it for this deep dive. Before you go, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and maybe send this to a friend who needs a wake-up call. We'll see you next time.